This is the ABCs of homesteading. This is number 2 video. Today we're going to talk about several things. We're going to start out with acclimation. This is our brooder. And inside are our little chickies. These are rare breed chicks that we're starting out with. So whenever you're raising something under a heat light, or if you have it in the house, for some reason, you need to acclimate it properly. With a heat light, you wean them off of it less and less after about 6-8 weeks of age when we're feathered. And you wean them off of it and then put them out for the first time outside on a warm day. Don't pick a cold day, or they're going to kind of go into a shock that the climate is way different. Same thing with indoors. You don't want them to go into shock when you put them outdoors, so wait till it's warmer out and let them spend more and more time outside. That way they're not going to do poorly when they're suddenly thrown into that circumstance like that. So those are the chickies, not ready to come off the light. Hi, puppies. So the next thing we want to talk about is having animals in the house. We do not recommend by any means having goats, sheep, even rabbits in the house long term. It's bad for their lungs, and so you want to get them outside as soon as you can. If you've got bottle babies, goats in the house, I don't actually recommend it. I recommend you leave them out in a barn with their kind if you have more goats. But if you have had them in the house for whatever means, that you would go ahead and acclimate them properly so that they're accustomed to being outside. The reason you don't want them in your house is the air quality is poor in your house. Even though your house seems well ventilated to you, and we do fine with it, it's hard on animal lungs. And they wind up with lung damage from that. And that brings us to our next one, which is autopsy. So animals that have been lost, or that we have harvested for meat, we always take a look at what went on inside. What do their lungs look like? One goat that we had kept in a stall, he ended up with lung damage. He was right next to the door. Didn't matter. So these animals can and will end up with lung damage if you leave them in the house. So we do recommend autopsying where and when you can. Autopsy your eggs that haven't hatched out of the incubator. Now you can't tell after you've incubated them how good the fertility was, but you can tell that they didn't start, or they died shortly after they started. And those are important as well. Another A we're going to talk about is animal sales. Excuse me. We're recommending screening homes. Make sure they have what the animal's going to need: shelter, food, hoof trim if it's a goat, food, proper food. A lot of people think that you don't need to feed them. So educate the new buyers. Give care info sheets. Give them food to transfer them to their new home. Give them water if possible, because that's hard on their system. They're very picky about their water. Have on hand some kennels that you might want to have to borrow to the people if they haven't brought any, so that they can transport them safely. And that brings us to one of the sales possibilities, which is auctions. The problem I have with auctions is you cannot screen the home. You need to know what to expect from an animal auction. People are there to buy meat a lot of the times. So if you're there to sell, I have a heartbreaking story about a lady I know who went to an auction with her little animals, and she didn't know what was going to happen and what the buyers were. The buyers were there to buy meat. And once she discovered that, there was nothing she could do. So if you are adverse to selling your animal for meat, don't take it to an auction. Buying animals from an auction. There are bad sellers that take animals to auction that are sick. You don't know what's going on with that animal. You don't know what you're getting, whether it's breed or why it's there. So, and then there's also safety at an auction. You want to sanitize your feet when you come home. because there's all kinds of diseases you can pick up at auctions. That way you're not endangering your flocks and herds by being around them. And one last thing I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to my sister is algae. We are living in the Pacific Northwest. Still water and still air creates algae and moss. Same reason that your orchard trees get moss on them, because there's not enough circulation, is the reason there's algae as well. There's not enough air circulation, not enough water circulation. Sometimes you can even get algae in the pens. Algae, you want to use a bleach of some kind. Hi kitty, you're right in the way. Algae can be harmful inside dishes, for instance. You want to keep that bleached and cleaned so that you don't have harmful algae affecting the health of your animal. I take a spray bottle and just spray the outside of the buildings. I spray and sanitize the dishes to make sure everybody's safe. So the last thing we're going to talk about on the A's is medicines. Antihistamines we're going to start with. And we'll turn it over to my sister.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about antihistamines. So if we're dealing with just like your dog or something, and they've got allergies, then Benadryl is okay, but you need to be careful because long-term use can be bad. It can be difficult on their system. If you're doing dogs, the vet does not recommend a liquid Benadryl like this. They recommend the pills. Also, Zyrtec is a safer option, and there's, generic brands of Zyrtec. If you're talking about your farm animals, it's easier to give if you are giving the liquid. And you may have any number of reasons you may need an antihistamine with your animals. You could be talking about, just allergies they have, like we have a dog that's allergic to chicken. You could have animals that are allergic to other things, like we had a goat that we tracked down eventually, that it was Timothy hay she was allergic to, and the Benadryl did give her some relief. This is actually, Benadryl is diphenhydramine. Okay, so you may be able to get an off-brand of it for cheaper.
Obviously, if you can find the origin, treating the symptoms isn't the complete solution. Treating the origin is.
Okay, sometimes the origin is not a mystery at all. So we had a number of times when the entire herd got stung by bees because of some irresponsible goat that decided to tear down a bee's nest or dig one up out of the ground. And it was important to have this on hand. Because at that point, when everybody's stung, you're not going to want to run to the store to get Benadryl. It's better to have it already.
The next A is antibiotics. These are highly important, you guys, because why, sister?
Because in June of 2023, over-the-counter injectable antibiotics and some other ones are going to be going off of the market where you can't get them over the counter anymore. This one here is a water-soluble powder. That has already been taken off the market. Some of us got those and kept them because these were easier to use for, something less serious or as a first line of defense before you went to injectables. Something like that, But that's an oxytetracycline. Now, oxytetracycline also has an injectable form, which is LA200, also known as Biomycin, if you get the name brand one from your vet. That's a prescription. This one is over the counter, though, for now. So this is a really good all-around antibiotic, but if you're going to give this, be aware that some goats react very extremely to it. It stings really bad. If you can get the prescription one from your vet, which is Biomycin, it doesn't sting. This is not the best one for respiratory things, but on the label, it's let's see, it's liquamycin LA200 oxytetracycline injection. Okay, so treatment of disease in beef cattle, dairy cattle, calves, including pneumonia and swine.
So when you're using it for your goats and sheep, it can be off-label, but nonetheless,
Yeah, there are not a
useful.
lot of good antibiotics that are over the counter that have goats and sheep on them typically. Anyway, let's see. So it said pneumonia, but you know, there's a number of different things it can be used for. I can't actually find it on there, but that's okay.
The dosages will let you look up or look at it on the bottles.
Yeah, you need a good, particularly when you're talking about goats, you need to find a good dosage guide because there won't be a dosage for goats on the label. Okay, so because I said this one is not the best one for pneumonia and things like that, this one is the one you want to use for pneumonia over the counter. Obviously, your vet is going to have better ones available than you can get over the counter. But if you don't have an option, these are good. And this can be used for pneumonia. This is shipping fever, metritis, diphtheria, foot rot, lots of different things. Dysentery for swine, erysipelas. Now, but if you're giving it to baby animals, this one is harder to dose, okay? Because it's a very small dose for a small animal. So they make this one as well, which is Tylen 50. These are Tylosin. And these are more easily used for small animals because it's an easier dosage. You wouldn't really want to use this on a big animal because it's too large of a dosage. This one also is going off the market. That's a Terramycin eye ointment. This is one of the only good medicated eye ointments we can get over the counter. So that's going to be difficult, and you may need to find other options for eyes if you can't get to a vet. This one here is Sulfamed. That will also be going off the market. This is really considered, this is sulfadimethoxine. This is really considered more of a antibacterial, but it still really is an antibiotic. This is not only good all-around antibacterial, but it's also, I mean, you can use it for foot rot, you can use it for all kinds of things. But it's also a good coccidia preventative and treatment.
LA200, the lipomycin, can also be used for retained placentas and things like this.
Oh yeah, I forgot to bring out the penicillin. Penicillin will also be going off the over-the-counter list.
So they're telling everybody to have a good relationship with your vet, but in the meantime, we would recommend you purchase a good number of these while you can. That's the A's.